Good morning, good brother.
How goes it, my friend?
Look, everything is all good now in Cowboys Nation. We are on the damn board.
Yeah, man. They woke up and started signing some guys. Obviously, the biggest one being Eric Kendricks, and,
Yeah.
and you got to love the way they finessed him away from another team, but especially when that team is the 49ers. So, 2024, the Cowboys have their first win against the San Francisco 49ers. I'll take it. I'll
Look,
take it.
not the win that we want, but hopefully it starts some momentum. That's all.
Right. There you go. Make yourself stronger and make your enemy weaker at the same time. I'll sign up for that 7 days out of the week.
Put a pin in that because I do want to revisit that, Pat. But I want to start off talking about some of the guys we were just talking about in Jourdan Lewis and C.J. Goodwin. And let me say this first. I want to remind the people of the elite coverage that you're providing on J. Lou's return from the physical and mental standpoint. I think it really shined a light on the human side of things. And a lot of the times, fans, sometimes you can tend to forget they're real people. And I think your coverage on that was unbelievable.
I appreciate that, man. And it's the same with Michael Gallup. I know Michael Gallup's return from injury didn't go the way fans would have liked or Michael Gallup would have liked, but the same with Jourdan Lewis. It's just the way that I prefer to carry my coverage in that, it's one thing to completely analyze what a player is doing on the field, which is completely justifiable. Everyone knows the science. Everyone knows how I get down. Everybody knows that when it comes to breaking down the X's, the O's, and the math on everything, I get to it. That being said, these are also human beings. So I try to dive into the human condition as well, like what's going on in this player's head. Why is this player having a hard time these past few games? What might they be going through? And then when you look at what Jourdan Lewis specifically went through, so with Michael Gallup, it was a torn ACL. That's devastating, but in today's NFL, today's medical world, not necessarily the end of the world. Players come back the next season, and some are right back at top form. Some take a few games, but eventually they might get there. When you look at what happened to Jourdan Lewis, it wasn't a Lisfranc injury as it was initially described. That's the easy way to label it. His foot shattered, absolutely shattered into pieces. So it was something that nearly medically retired him, threw him into a deep depression, threw him into a seclusion. And shouts out to guys like Al Harris and some of his teammates who, when J. Lou wouldn't answer the phone and wouldn't reply to texts, they didn't just accept that and say, hey, you know what, every man for himself, culture, right? Culture. They absolutely showed up to his front door, kept knocking until he answered, made their way in, and then reminded him to stay connected with them. And that was the trigger point in Jourdan Lewis's mind to say, hey, if these guys and my coaches are willing to fight for me like this, I need to put in the same effort to fight for them and fight for this team and fight for this fan base. So to see him be able to do that, and then on the back end of the season, refine himself top form-wise as far as making plays, it's just a beautiful thing. So I appreciate that, and everyone who appreciates that duality in my coverage between the X's and the O's and the human condition.
Sounds like you're qualified to me there. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Rumor has it, right.
I didn't mean to be petty. I couldn't help myself.
Oh no, I love it. Yeah, I love it. I'm here for that.
The other question I think a lot of people want to know, Pat, is okay. J. Lou's back, right? So the room now looks like DeRon Bland. It looks like Trayvon Diggs when he gets back. You got some young pucks behind him, and you got Jourdan Lewis as we speak. But people want to know about Stefon Gilmore. Does this impact a potential Stefon Gilmore return?
Absolutely not. And I want Cowboys fans to understand that I understand that we're all operating from a place of trauma, okay? And sometimes that forces you to think, well, if they gave us an apple, they're not giving us the orange, okay? This is not one of those situations, and that applies in some situations, but not this one. The Cowboys have continued to, work with Stefon Gilmore. They're still in on trying to get Gilmore to remain in the building. Gilmore himself has already declared that he wants to remain with the Dallas Cowboys. But again, free agency is a two-way street. So, they're going to make their push, and he has to make the decision himself if he's going to stay or go. But signing Jourdan Lewis is one part of the equation, not the entire equation. They want Stefon Gilmore back, especially considering, none of us have gotten to see him tandem with Trayvon Diggs yet, so still want to see that. In addition to, this heightened version of Jourdan Bland, in addition to Jourdan Lewis being back in prime form. The Cowboys want to see that, also taking into account the fact that we don't know that Trevon Diggs is going to be Trayvon Diggs from moment one. It might take him some weeks to get back into his groove. So that makes Stefon Gilmore that much more valuable as far as insurance goes. So just relax, everyone. We'll see how it goes because, again, it's a two-way street. Gilmore has the right to choose where he wants to go. But I can tell you definitively that the Cowboys are not out on Stefon Gilmore and not a $2 million contract, give or take, on Jourdan Lewis one-year deal. That's not going to preclude them from signing anybody else that they want.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about this next guy I want to talk about with the linebacker situation. You talked about at the top of this here with Eric Kendricks being our, the first player signed outside the building, and obviously he had a change of heart, leaving San Fran and come here to join Mike Zimmer. But I don't think his addition necessarily affects what you want to do at the position. But I do want to ask you, how impactful do you believe his addition is, and do you have any insight on how this happened? Because I thought it was over, I thought he went to San Francisco.
Yeah, I spoke with Stephen Jones about that yesterday, and then spoke with some other people in the building as well. And it was just basically a finesse job. So let me answer this in two parts. One, as far as his impact to the team, is this the same Eric Kendricks that was a first-team All-Pro? No, it's not the same Eric Kendricks that was a first-team All-Pro. However, is this a version of Eric Kendricks that can come in and instantly upgrade your entire linebacking core? Absolutely it is. Is he still as instinctual as he's ever been? Absolutely he is. Maybe half a step has been lost here or there, but trust me when I tell you, this version of Eric Kendricks does not exist in any other body in the Cowboys locker room. I love Damone Clark. I love the strides that he took, the flashes that he's shown, but I need to see more in year three. He wants to see more in year three. Cowboys need to see more in year three. LVE, that decision is still looming. I checked in on that as recently as yesterday. Decision still not made. Some clarity there. Folks are asking if LVE is holding the team hostage. His contract's only $2 million. That's not holding anybody hostage when, as I broke down on Twitter, they can pull triggers and free up $45, $46 million on demand. So, no, LVE's decision is not holding them hostage, nor is it impacting their plan, because whether he stays or goes, the plan still has to be add in free agency, i.e. Eric Kendricks, and going into the draft, add somebody there. So that plan's still there. But Kendricks, he's going to be an impact player for the Cowboys, and it also helps that he can hit the ground running. He doesn't have to learn the playbook. He knows Mike Zimmer's playbook. He doesn't have to learn and acclimate to the defensive coordinator. He knows the defensive coordinator and the senior defensive assistant and Paul Gunther. So that's a plug and play. Great thing for the Cowboys. Now, as far as how they finessed it, without getting into too much details, because the NFL and the league, they're listening. Let me say everything was legal. Okay, let me just put that out there. Let me put that out there. But also, Kendricks had agreed to join the 49ers, and that's basically where he was. And the Cowboys had conceded, even though he was one of their top interests at linebacker, that's where he was going to go. They were probably going to pay him more, and, let's move on to the next person that we have interest in. And enters Mike Zimmer. Zimmer basically convinced them to revisit the situation and basically, for all intents and purposes, told them, hey, until that deal is signed, it's not signed, you need to make another pitch there. Cowboys, picked up the phone, made another pitch. Zimmer got on the phone with him, and long story short, he's going to be in a Cowboys uniform and not a 49ers uniform.
I love to hear that last part, because when I talked about him last month as being a potential trade target, or if he got cut, free agent target, the one hurdle to me was the relationship between Zimmer and Kendricks. It ended badly, but what I took away from Zimmer in that press conference was, okay, this seems like a guy that a lot of former players respect after the fact, but during the time they hated him. But those type of people are usually the people that push you the best and you remember the most. So I love the fact that they made up here.
Yeah, and first of all, you talk about giving roses. Let me give you yours. You were one of the first, if not the first person to throw the Eric Kendricks chum in the water. I remember when you did it, and that's what piqued my intrigue, because I was like, wait a minute, Steele has a point here. And then I started kind of looking into it, and I'm like, okay, he's onto something here. So kudos to you for being one of the first, if not the first, to put it out there. It's almost like you're qualified. But
So I'm
when
not
it
a
comes
moron?
to
Okay.
relationships, like,
Anyway.
hey, there you go, right? When it comes to relationships, fences can always be mended. Time passes, things, heal. But I love the way you pointed it out in that if you think about it from personalize it, right? Internalize this and put it to the aspect of when you played sports. For those of us that have played sports, or even for those of us who haven't, maybe we've had a teacher or a professor who was really hard on us, who really gave us hell, but the intentions were good. The reason they gave us hell was not because they were being petty, not because they were being malicious, but genuinely because they wanted to see us do better. They felt that we had a higher potential than we were even seeing in ourselves, and they were trying to crack that egg open. Those who've had those run-ins with Zimmer, his former players, the reason they talk so fondly about him now is because his intent was never malicious. It was always him trying to crack the egg to get them to see their own potential. And that's one of the reasons why once time passes and maturity starts to set in, guys like Kendricks can then look at Zimmer, just much like guys look at Parcells now. They can look at those coaches, those hard, tough-nosed, hard-nosed coaches and say, you know what? Those guys were trying to make me better, and I respect that. So the respect has always been there, and that's why Kendricks is anxious to come back and play for Zimmer again.
We got Patrik No C Walker of DallasCowboys.com joining us, one of the most qualified that I know. Yesterday, Stephen Jones spoke at the PBR announcement event, and it seems like the Joneses are doing a lot of announcement events. You got World Cup announcement, PBR announcement, Tyson versus Paul. A whole lot of, But anyway, you had a chance, and the media had a chance to speak with him. Yeah. What he said some things, and I'm going to talk about some of the things he talked about afterwards. But what was some of your biggest takeaways from the Stephen Jones? I don't call it presser, but kind of impromptu presser.
Well, first of all, I made sure that I led with the question of Tyron Smith. Where are we with Tyron Smith? We being Cowboys fans, we being Cowboys media, Cowboys organization, where we with Tyron Smith with the door closed, and he assured me that the door is absolutely not shut. Negotiations continue. Unless Tyron Smith signs elsewhere, he's not signed elsewhere. So they're really hoping that, as Stephen Jones said, that he can continue, quote unquote, continue his career with the Cowboys in 2024. So they're still trying to get that landed. And for me, that's the biggest fish that's still out there for them as far as their in-house free agency signings. It'll solve an immediate need and not push them to a bigger need and draft for need in the draft. So that's one of the biggest things. Dak Prescott contract status, he did give an update on that as well, said that those talks are ongoing. He didn't want to put a timeline to it, which I respect, but he also said that juicy little tidbit here in saying that Dak Prescott has been all in on working with the Cowboys to try to get the deal done. I know
he know what he doing, bro. He know what he doing.
I know he's being petty with that. He is. I will say this though, the fact that when you combine, because there's two sides to everything. So when you combine Dak Prescott's commentary on the contract status, when I went to meet him at the Children's Cancer event, fund event, and he said it'll happen. Mm-hmm. Things are in good status right now. And then you combine that with what Steven said yesterday as far as Dak being willing to work, with the Cowboys. All signs point to the deal getting done. Now, when will that happen? Nobody knows, but at least there's traction there, so good news. Same with CD and Micah. They're, no status quo as far as the Cowboys still wanting to re-sign both of them or extend both of them, I should say. Interesting tidbits about the running back position. Cowboys are looking to do exactly what I said they were going to do, because once all of the primo running backs flew off the board, I said, well, it doesn't matter who you sign now, because you're going to have to combo them with a draft pick anyway. Mm-hmm. Stephen Jones basically said that outright. He said they're looking at drafting a running back, and he said, but don't count us out as signing one as well in free agency. So look for that combo pack. What does that look like? Not sure. A.J. Dillon's off the board, which I'm totally fine with, by the way.
Yeah.
But J.K. Dobbins is still out there, and I've had conversations with some key people in the know who told me a few days ago, do not rule out a potential reunion with Ezekiel Elliott. The dialogue remains open. There have been some talks, not necessarily about contracts just yet, but there have been talks over the past few months between Elliott and the front office, just on a personal level, staying connected. That tells me the door is wide open there, and he's a perfect fit for what they need right now. Back end of his career, but still operating at a high level, power back, can get you the short yardage, and he's not going to come in assuming that he's going to be the bell cow. He would know coming in that there's going to be a young buck that's drafted probably going to take his place effective 2025. So those are some of the biggest takeaways from Stephen Jones' conversation that I had with him yesterday.
In closing here, you talked a little bit about these contracts with not Zeke. You brought up Zeke with Dak and with Lamb and whatnot. I have a question.
Did you just try to manifest that? I think you just tried to manifest that.
I mean, you said contract, you said Zeke, and in my head, contract Zeke it came up. I've got other options.
Yeah,
I got other options for later.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I dig it.
I guess was it a fraudulent slip? I guess. But
yeah, the Freudian slip.
My man Aaron had brought up a question yesterday, or more of a not necessarily a question, but he said something along the lines of the 2025 cap. A lot of people down there are talking about the 2025 cap being, I guess, doomsday. So he basically wanted to know, he said, Cowboys can't restructure because of all the contracts. This is what people at .com, he said, are saying. Coming to a head in 2025. Looking at Spotrac, it says a different story. He said, I need this in the low cash spending question asked to no C. So can you kind of give some insight on the 2025 cap situation that I guess it seems like it's a doomsday situation?
Well, as it stands, and I've spoken with I've looked into it myself, but I've also literally sat down and had a conversation with the Cowboys cap guys on this. And the Cowboys cap guys are describing it as a doomsday scenario in 2025. Now, that's not necessarily going to match up with what you see online. And when it comes to those two things, I'll have to defer to the Cowboys cap guys because they don't have an agenda. They don't talk to media. What do they care, right? They're literally just there for the numbers and the contracts. So had a deep conversation with them. And the way they broke it down was what's not being reflected on, sites like overthecap.com and Spotrac are some existing dead money figures that the team is aware of that's looming for 2025, but those sites and those sources that feed those sites aren't necessarily aware of. So that for Ron, that's going to be the disconnect between what you guys see and what we see on the front end, overthecap.com, spotrac.com, those numbers versus what the Cowboys are looking at when they open their books on a daily basis. So, and that's why they're reticent to restructure, guys. But at the same time, and I know Stephen Jones provided a repositioning of the phrase all in, which, but my definition of all in is still the same definition of all in, which is push all the chips to the table. And when you have contract situations like Trevon Diggs, his is brand new, you can restructure his money doesn't move to 2025. Malik Hooker's new contract, his money doesn't move to 2025. Terrence Steele, his money doesn't move to 2025. Restructures like that on those new deals, those deals move to 26, 7, 28, way down the road. So those don't hit 25 anyway. Okay. That's why, although it's truthful what the cap guys in the building are telling me, it's also true that no matter how you view 2025, restructuring some of the names I said right now doesn't make 2025 more of a doomsday than the team already views it as. It simply makes things more difficult in 26, 27, 28, which is where you have a higher salary cap every single year over year anyway. So objectively speaking, I personally am not accepting that as a logical reason to not go and sign who you need to sign this year.
I'm right there with you, Pat. Look, bro, I appreciate you. I know you're up against it here. You're about to go holler at CJ, so we look forward to that.
Yeah, I got to go talk to CJ. Special teams ace is back in the building. I want to talk to him about his health. How's he feeling for, potentially not starting camp on the PUP list. So underrated, big,
yes.
Re-signing for the Cowboys. Bones Fossil has to be jumping up and down for this
100%, man. I'll let you get to it then, bro. Appreciate you, as always, joining us throughout the weeks, man. Go do your thing.
Absolutely. Talk to you guys soon. Stay qualified, man.